This is so exciting to be back here again. So I'm so glad that you're all here. I love the part about the doctors. I work with them every day, work with doctors every day. And so I think that having them out here and hearing what they have to say is just going to be fantastic for all of you. So without further ado, I'm going to bring the doctors out. So come on, doctors. Here we go. Wonderful. Okay, you guys can all take seats. I'm going to introduce the doctors to you one by one so that you know who you're hearing from. We have a fantastic, fantastic lineup. Before I start, I'm going to read something that's very important. Some of the information we are going to share with you is based on the results of a few people. You may not have similar results. Mila is not intended to treat or cure any disease. Okay? All right, first we have Dr. Francisco Gutierrez. He is in private practice, has been in private practice for over 10 years. He is board certified in internal medicine and geriatrics. He's also a fellow in the American College of Cardiology and the American College of Geriatric Specialists. He has been chosen as one of America's top physicians for 2010 by the Consumer Research Council of America. Dr. Gutierrez. Next, we have Dr. Teresa Lawrence Ford. She is the medical director of North Georgia Rheumatology Group. She is a board certified in both internal medicine and rheumatology. She's been practicing for 27 years, and she is a fellow of the American College of Rheumatology and serves as a member of the board of directors for the Georgia chapter of the Arthritis Foundation and as a member of the medical advisory board of the Lupus Foundation and the Lupus Registry. She is also certified as a personal trainer, which is unusual for a doctor, with the American Council on Exercise, and was recently seen in national magazines including Reader's Digest, Good Housekeeping, WebMD, Health, and Redbook. Dr. Teresa Lawrence Ford. She is a veteran of the doctors panel. I'm very happy to have her back. Next is Dr. Ellen Duke. Dr. Ellen Duke has been the director of River Hills Wellness Center in Jacksonville, Florida for the past 21 years. She is a chiropractor with an additional degree in nutritional counseling. She is also a certified sports physician. Dr. Duke is on the board for the Florida Chiropractic Association and the facilitator for the Christian Chiropractic Association. Dr. Duke was recently added to the Mayor's Council on Fitness and Well-Being. Dr. Ellen Duke. And then we have Dr. Elias Jacobo. He is board certified as a urologist and has been practicing for over 30 years. He is a fellow in the American College of Surgeons, a fellow in the International College of Surgeons, and has been published multiple times. When I was reading his CV, I was blown away by how many times Dr. Jacobo has been published in big medical journals, which is really a very big deal. He's also been the head investigator in multitudes of clinical studies. Dr. Jacobo. Okay, so we're going to start with Dr. Francisco Gutierrez, who many of you have had the pleasure of hearing in the past. I feel like you guys can't see me. I'm sorry, I'm moving. Okay, Dr. Gutierrez, please tell me a little bit about your personal history with nutrition prior to LifeMax.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I'll answer that question, Rachel, by saying that about a year ago, I was 43 years old. I thought I was healthy, although I already had a stroke, and I had obstructive sleep apnea, and I weighed 180 pounds, and I thought I was healthy. And what turned it around for me was that I had to have some blood tests, and my triglycerides came back at 1,700. So then, this is me. Then I realized that something is wrong here. I mean, I'm a physician. I think I'm healthy. And what I realized was that I had no clue about nutrition. And, you know, thinking in my own experience and my education, I realized that we doctors get very little training, if any at all, in nutrition. So what I did was I just made a few changes with eventually Mila being my foundation, and I am 40 pounds lighter. My cholesterol numbers are terrific. My good cholesterol is almost it's through the roof. My triglycerides came down from 1,700 to 80 on no medications. So that's a brief snippet about my experience with nutrition.
Okay, so I'm gonna start talking with you about Mila via what type of patients do you see on a regular basis in your office?
Okay, I'm a traditional internal medicine primary care physician, also specialized in geriatrics. So I see pretty much everything in my practice. Hypertension, diabetes, depression, high cholesterol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So, and I say that with actually each of the doctors because I want you to understand what type of patients they see on a regular basis. What type of patients do you typically recommend Mila to, if you do, in your office?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll answer that by saying that what caught my attention about Mila initially was the content in omega-3s. And there's no doctor on earth that does not know the benefits of omega-3s. So in anyone that I'm seeing that I think of omega-3s, in the past, before Mila, I used to recommend fish oil. But now, obviously, I recommend Mila because Mila is a much better and safer delivery system of omega-3. So that's how I think. So to answer your question is, I pretty much recommend Mila to anyone that I'm thinking about omega-3s, and then obviously fiber, now calcium, and the other nutrients that Mila is rich in.
Now, because we have not spent a lot of time so far in this conference talking about what it is that's so fantastic about omega-3s, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that just a little bit.
Sure. Omega-3s are essential nutrients. And there's a wealth of information, a wealth of data out there on the benefits in pretty much every organ system, especially in rheumatology, that we'll learn a little later, but also mostly in cardiovascular disease, as far as prevention and as far as not only prevention, but also in many instances in cure of certain conditions. So that any doctor that deals with cardiovascular diseases, as I do, knows the benefits.
And so then when I ask you what type of patients you refer to, you said people that you would usually recommend omega-3s to. And then I'll ask what type of results over the last, has it been about a year now, would you say?
About a year, yes.
What type of results have you seen?
Weight loss, triglycerides, me being one of the prime examples, as I explained at the beginning, lowers cholesterol, raises the good cholesterol, but mostly weight loss is a big thing that I'm seeing.
Wow, that's wonderful. Now, one of the big questions we all hear a lot about, I think it's very easy to go online and Google omega-3s in medical studies. That's something that I always talk about when I'm speaking so that you can see what type of information is out there on omega-3s. But one of the questions that I'm often asked as a healthcare provider myself is there anyone that you would not recommend Mila to? And so you're going to hear me talking about that with each of the doctors. So Dr. Gutierrez, maybe someone that you would not recommend Mila to or hesitate to recommend it to because of a condition that they have or a medication they're taking.
Nope. In as much as this is a food, and it's the healthiest whole raw food, there's absolutely no one on earth that should not be eating this. There are specifically, having said that, for example, specific conditions where if somebody is having an acute attack of diverticulitis, for example, in that particular instance, while they're suffering their attack, I would obviously withhold it because fiber can make it worse, and Mila is a very rich source of fiber. But other than that, anyone in the world can eat it.
And then I'm going to specifically address people that are on blood thinners, because this is a question that I'm often asked, and as you guys probably are as well. So when I say blood thinners, I'm talking about things like aspirin, Plavix, Coumadin. Some of you are probably on this or have family members who are on them. And so you're like, I take Coumadin, I can't take omega-3s. So Dr. Gutierrez, what would be your response to that?
That's a great question, Rachel, because I get that question asked often. And what I did was, we doctors are not victims, but we also have our own preconceived notions. And the reason why people are concerned about omega-3s is that because of their anti-inflammatory and anti-aggregatory condition, they can act as mild blood thinners. But the reality is that there's a wealth of data out there that has established that there is absolutely no risk of bleeding, no increased risk of bleeding, even in people who take Coumadin, Plavix, or any of these other, aspirin, et cetera.
Wonderful. Okay, so I think that was clear enough for all of you in the room. Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. So Dr. Teresa Lawrence Ford, I'm first going to ask you, how long have you been eating Mila?
Personally, I have been eating Mila for the past 2 years, started in October 2008.
So she's been a long-time eater of Mila, and I next want to ask what first drew you to it? What caught your attention in the beginning?
In the beginning, let me state, as a rheumatologist, my interest is in musculoskeletal health, and I became a personal trainer exactly because of the reason that Dr. Gutierrez mentioned, and that as physicians, we do not have the training or any specific time period that's allotted to learning about nurturing our bodies and about taking care of our musculoskeletal systems. So it becomes our own duty, our own particular interest in gaining that knowledge. And I felt by adding that to my training that I would be able to help my patients with the musculoskeletal issues that they come to me with. And I felt that my diet was really pretty pristine, very careful, very cautious about what I did, planned meal plan every day. I started eating Mila, and I started noticing a difference. First with my bowel health, which was very, very surprising because I thought that my fiber content in my nutritional panel was excellent. And then I noticed increased energy. I stopped drinking coffee as much as I had been drinking coffee. I never finished a cup anymore. I also noted that my body fat that I thought was pretty good started decreasing even more. So those things got my attention because they happened very, very early. I had one joint on one finger that I used in doing some of my procedures, and that stopped hurting. I bumped it one day, and it did not hurt, and that really got my attention.
And so how long what would you say there was the transition period between you starting to eat it and you actually recommending it to your patients?
I started eating in October 2008 and actually became a LifeMax distributor in April of 2009. So 6 months later, was just so excited about the possibility of offering a new option to my patients to improve their nutritional status. Always talked about that. I felt that, and I do feel that we have to recognize the importance of treating illness and disease, but if we fail to acknowledge one of the primary points, and that is prevention of illness and disease, we fail. We have to take that as a responsibility, and using Sherry's word of conviction, we have a moral conviction to educate our patients about nutrition, because that's the major key in changing lifestyle and changing patterns.
Is there a specific, I know that you do a lot of nutritional counseling in your office. Is there a specific type of patient that you recommend the Mila to?
I recommend Mila to all of my patients. I talk about the importance of nutrition, and when my patients come in, and again, their musculoskeletal health issues often change their activities of daily living, change their functional capacity, and frighten them somewhat with the possibility of future disability and loss of function. And so it's very important early on. We talk about non-pharmacological interventions, because if we don't get the vessel good, it doesn't matter what type of medicine, what prescription we write, it's not going to work. And so all of my patients have the input and education about their nutritional pattern. We talk about weight, optimal weight and weight maintenance, really. And we talk about controlling the day. So if we're going to address good carbohydrates and good fats, and talk about fiber in that diet, and talk about good protein, Mila is the absolute ingredient that has all of that encompassed. If my patients are going to take control and help me to help them, it's very, very important that they understand that. And so I offer it to every patient, because I talk to all of my patients about anti-inflammatories, and that's where it starts, those omega-3s, and decreasing those pro-inflammatory omega-6s, and Mila has that perfect blend, and it truly is that miracle seed for all of my patients.
So I know you and I were talking earlier about, she's great, isn't she? About how we've moved, you've moved about 1,000 bags, you think. She's
Yes.
clearly been recommending it for a very long time. And I want to really focus on this for just a moment. The way that she recommends that they start eating it, I think, is very important. Because as we were speaking, I asked you about have you had patients that have come back with abdominal pain, gassiness, bloating, nausea, any of those things? And Dr. Teresa really said, no. And so I said, okay, no. And I'll say that again, no. How are you recommending it to your patients?
Okay. Again, in addressing nutrition, initially I asked about their experience with fiber, and a lot of them know it as roughage. I asked them if they eat a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, if they've taken any type of fiber over the counter, and I asked what their experience is. And most people know, I try to eat my 5 fruits and 5 vegetables, but I bloat, I have a lot of gas, and, I've taken fish oil and I burp up, and, so I kind of identify that patient that may have some bowel issues immediately. And I recommend, if I have any suspicion, that they start very small. Our recommendation for a serving size is 2 tablespoons. I'll reduce them to 1/4 teaspoon for the first few days and to see what their experience is. I previously told patients to use Mila as I did, and that was putting my 2 tablespoons in water and adding a little juice, and I told them this elaborate method. But now I tell them to start with whatever measure and start with the small for the first few days and increase to their tolerance and let them know. And some of my patients, they take 3 scoops a day, some 2, but we want them to have a benefit. Some have a very, very difficult, slow system. They haven't been treating themselves well, so we have to identify those patients. And I also tell them to get a shaker and have that shaker as a condiment on their counters and to shake that into their food and to do that throughout the day. And that kind of helps them to get used to fiber if they have not been used to it before.
That's a great idea.
And to make sure that they are drinking water.
That's the next thing I wanted to talk about. You actually give a specific formula to your patients regarding how much water they should be drinking.
I do.
Will you elaborate on that?
Yes. We can replace water, we can measure output and input, but a very simple concept is to ask the patient to take half their weight in water in ounces. And in some of my patients, it's going to be a lot, and they may not be able to achieve that, but I ask them to try to use that as a goal. And that's going to end up being somewhere between 2 to 3 liters, depending on the size and depending on their tolerance. But they must do that.
That's wonderful.
And the beauty of Mila is that it is such a hydrophilic, meaning it loves water. So it holds so much more than its weight in water per seed. And I call it the slow release hydration constantly on a daily basis. And so it's very, very important for that.
I'm going to reiterate for one moment what she said. If she asks people before she gives it to them or recommends that they start eating it, how much fiber do you eat? What is your roughage? The fruits and vegetables, do you eat 5 a day? Do you have any problems eating that much? And then if they do, she recommends they start with 1/4 teaspoon and that they drink half of their weight in ounces. So if I weigh 135 pounds, I would drink about 68 ounces of water per day would be her recommendation. So I think those are good notes to take as you're recommending it to people. So thank you, Dr. Teresa.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, Dr. Ellen Duke, when were you first introduced to Mila?
One of my patients, who happens to be an attorney, asked me about Mila last fall. They were not a LifeMax distributor or anything, just knew about Mila and wanted to get some. I didn't have the opportunity to research that until not until late in February of this year, before I was actually able to get a Mila account. So now for about 8 months now.
About 8 months. And the funny little thing about that person who told her about it was underneath one of my distributors. But then I actually met Dr. Ellen Duke when I went with my friend Kathy Chisholm, who asked me to go speak with her. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that discussion that day, because I really think there's a way to talk to doctors. Clearly, doctors love this stuff. I think that's very obvious. Specifically, the doctors who know about omega-3s already and are big fans of it and recommending it to their patients. And that first day that Kathy and I were in Dr. Duke's office, there was about a 5-minute kind of a bantering session. Because most of them in their minds are thinking, I don't want to sign up for anything, I'm not into this. But I literally saw the light bulb go off after about 5 minutes. After I said, these are omega-3s. The most potent source of omega-3s, that's what this is. I could almost see it. And then she came in as a distributor that afternoon. So Dr. Duke, can you elaborate on what went through your mind when you made that connection?
Sure. Well, I've been practicing nutrition real aggressively for 25 years now. And what went off in my mind was that Mila was omega-3s in a whole raw food form. We've been real successful in my office at taking care of a lot of conditions, GI problems and breathing problems and cardiovascular problems and infertility, and I love all of that, but it takes a phenomenal amount of effort on behalf of the doctor and the patient, in that I would send home patients with 6 to 10 bottles of supplements per day. And you know, my sister is an attorney, and she's my nutrition guinea pig. And sometimes, and she tells me that, well, after she's taken her morning supplements, there's no room left for her breakfast. And so the getting omega-3s in a whole raw food form is giant for me, because it eliminates so much of the supplement drama that I had going on. And secondly, it's so much more efficient of a way to get nutrients in, because whole raw food has the enzymes still in there, which the enzymes in whole raw food tell your body what to do with it, as opposed to individual supplements. If they're taking vitamin C, frequently they separate ascorbic acid out of the vitamin C, which confuses your body into thinking, where is the rest of the orange? And whole raw food then has got all the instructions with it. And so the fact that Mila was, when I finally got a picture that it was the highest source of omega-3s in a whole raw food form, was giant to me, because we already in my office did vast quantities of omega-3s, again in the fish oil pill form, and nobody really loved that because they're taking vast quantities. And but in my office, I just about insist on that, because people that aren't omega-3s can heal faster, and so we've always done that. So this was just kind of made my life entirely easier, and I was thrilled for that opportunity as soon as I really knew what it was.
Now, Dr. Duke moves approximately 100 bags through her office a month, which, if you do the math, that's a lot of bags of Mila, and that's a lot of patients over the last 8 months. And we were talking earlier about how there's so many fantastic properties to Mila, and I really don't think we've even begun to scratch, like we've just begun to scratch the surface of all that we're going to find out in the upcoming years on Mila and how fantastic it is. But I was going to ask Dr. Duke to elaborate on what intrigues you the most about it. What is it that you like the most?
What I'm looking forward to now is seeing patients when they get on the bandwagon of trying to improve their health. They mentally go through this picture of, first, it's usually a weight loss thing, and then they're trying to get their cardiovascular health underway. And if there is a blood sugar handling thing, they got to learn all about that. And when all those things are under control, then people become aware of anti-aging. And having just turned 50 last week, I'm all about that, anti-aging. But the reason I love Mila is because one of the biggest components of anti-aging is glandular health. And one of the very best, biggest things you can do for glandular health is omega-3s. Because your body uses omega-3s to transport trace minerals and to make hormones. And so in glandular health, you can make a real dramatic impact. And I'm looking forward to seeing research unfold in that department, so to speak, because in pursuing anti-aging, if you contemplate the glands that people usually think about, you have a pituitary gland up here in your brain, which is like the master controller, and then you have your thyroid gland in your throat, which contributes to your basal metabolic rate, how fast your body ticks. And if you don't take good care of your thyroid over time, you become tired and fat, and so that's a problem. Next, on top of your kidneys are your adrenal glands, and they are responsible for the flight or fright syndrome, for your body's adapting to its environment. And then lastly is your gonads, your reproductive glands. And interestingly enough, as people in the anti-aging category, and between the age of 45 to 55, and women flow through menopause and men flow through andropause, that really is a true situation, your ovaries and testicles decrease their quantity of sex hormones. Your adrenal glands will, God's already put a system in place for you. Your adrenal glands will kick in, and they already make DHEA, that you can see sometimes. You guys see write-ups about it. And they will convert DHEA into testosterone and progesterone and estrogen in a quantity that your body needs already. So if you can keep your adrenal glands strong, you can usually avoid all the additional hormone drama that goes on with that. And the fact that omega-3s, and Mila is a whole raw food, is just a more efficient source to get your nutrients because then your body knows what to do with it. And taking outside hormones sometimes will confuse your body into thinking that you have a sufficient quantity of whatever those categories are, and your body then shuts down its own production of your own glands. So it kind of makes you dependent on those prescriptions and those shots, which is, in that whole anti-aging category is something that people get sucked into. So I'm looking forward to that. I love everything about it, but the glandular health thing is on the forefront, and we're coming forward.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Jacobo. Dr. Jacobo, I understand that you've been following the research on how the diet affects the prostate for many years. I'd like you to tell us what you found regarding omega-3s and prostate health.
Well, omega-3 has been on the forefront of prostate health, prevention of prostate cancer, decreasing the risk of prostate cancer. And as time goes by and we gather this gamut of patients that have had close calls with prostate cancer and they're trying to lengthen the time before the appearance of the cancer, I've learned a lot about nutrition and how it impacts the body and the prostate. I deal with what we call male pelvic health, which is from the belly button down, two things, prostate and sexual function in a men's world. About 70% of my practice is comprised of men, and many of them come in concerned because of the prostate or the close call to prostate cancer, a relative, a brother, a father, some family history of prostate cancer, and it's all over the news.
And so as you've done your research and you've become very aware of nutrition and the benefits of things, can you elaborate a little bit on what you found regarding whole raw foods and omega-3s, if you have, or how it affects the prostate?
First of all, anytime I see something that is 500 years old, I'm getting really excited, especially it's being reenacted. The last time I saw anything that was 500 years old or close was when I visited King Tut's exhibit, and there was a long line. So I'm really excited about Mila. Raw food in itself cannot be the most purest form, as our colleague claimed, of the enzymatic system that will recognize and direct and drive these nutrients and these metabolic pathways to the tissues that need it best. We know for a fact that prostate cancer, when you look at the cells, they all have fat. Prostate cancer cells and fat adjacent to it is like a marriage. They go hand in hand. And if you can prevent that fat addition to the cells of prostate, perhaps you can lengthen and prevent prostate cancer. I don't know. I can't make that claim. But I'm excited about the prospects of omega-3 in its purest form.
Wow. Okay, so I want you to, I know there's been a lot of, let me ask you this question, let me say it this way. I know there's a lot of talk about holistic and supplements for lots of different diseases. A lot of the people in the room are very big fans of alternative meds. What have been the alternative meds or supplements for prostate health over the past 10 to 20 years?
Excellent question. I've learned in the last few years with all the gamut of supplements that people take that I don't believe what my patients write on the form. So I ask them to come in with a plastic bag and bring everything on the medicine cabinet. I want to see it, I want to review it with them, because they don't think that that has an impact on their life. They think, well, that's vitamin E or zinc or selenium or saw palmetto when I see them for the prostate. And you'd be surprised how many of these patients are wasting the time and money. For instance, the SELECT trial, which is called selenium and vitamin E, selenium was the hottest thing 10 years ago. I mean, it was the buzzword for the prostate. Take selenium, take selenium. All of a sudden, this trial, which was funded by the NIH, the National Institute of Health, showed that selenium is worthless. Moreover, vitamin E can increase the risk of death if taken in this fashion. So this went down to the waistline. The idea that supplements are so beneficial to you does exist and is welcome. However, which supplements are you taking and why not, and how are they interfering with other medications? I love Mila for one reason. When you talk about phytotherapy, and that's the saw palmetto and all the palm trees that are being cut down to feed all these people's prostates, when you talk about saw palmetto and you talk about omega-3, you have both of them in one scoop a day. No need to bring a whole trunk of medicines to the doctor's office.
So I'm going to list off some statistics from the American Cancer Society. Other than skin cancer, prostate cancer is the most common cancer in American men. In 2010, 217,730 cases of prostate cancer are estimated to be diagnosed. About 32,050 men will die of prostate cancer in 2010. About 1 man in 6 will be diagnosed with prostate cancer during his lifetime. Prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in American men, second only to lung cancer. About 1 man in 36 will die of prostate cancer. So, Dr. Jacobo, clearly we have a full room, and many of the men in this room are men, most of whom probably still have their prostates. And I think the fact that we have a urologist on stage who has studied the health of the prostate and prevention for many years is very big. And so I will ask you, what would you recommend the men in this room do to help prevent prostate cancer?
Absolutely, Mila. I find that the combination of both, the omega-3 and the phytonutrients, added to the fiber, that's a different department. But from my perspective, the omega-3 and the phytonutrients will probably do more good than anything else that I've seen in the marketplace. And I've seen a lot. Remember, I bring patients with their bag and their samples. You'll be amazed the kind of stuff people get from China, from India, from all these different parts of the world. And they have something so available to them that is only 500 years old. How much bad news can you have, something so old? That's what I tell them.
So as the clock just hit 0, I will sum up that we have 4 very reputable doctors on stage. There are many in the room. There are many all over the world that are waiting to hear about Mila. If you know of a doctor who's already recommending omega-3s, please do not be scared to talk to them. You just have to get them to look at it, and that's the hard part. Omega-3s are essential fatty acids. It's a proven fact. This is not something that I'm saying, that essential fatty acids are something we all need to put into our bodies to function properly. And if you think about what I just said, that means if you're not putting omega-3s into your body, you're not functioning properly. Yet, only 5% of Americans are doing that. So that means 95% of the people that you come into contact with are not functioning properly. I think it's safe to say that you should be sharing Mila with every single person that you know. You never know whose life it's going to change. And we have so many people whose lives it's changing. And the doctors are changing more lives every day because, as you just heard, they are recommending it to their patients every single day. So I hope this was informative for you guys. I hope you took notes. I hope you can go back and share it with your distributors that every man, woman, and child should be eating Mila. So thank you.